So we started this whole year of 2024 right off the bat, Mars coming into a square with the nodes. That was in late January. And then Mars joined Pluto in February and then squared Uranus in early March and squared Pluto on June 11th. And now, as we speak, we've got this conjunction that's building between Mars and Uranus. And before I go into any of this, let me backpedal just a little bit and explain Mars. I'm sure you all know what Mars means and what Mars represents, but nonetheless, I want to underline, I want to highlight and emphasize that this is the action planet. This is the planet of war and lust and energy and passion and aggression and all the good, the bad, and the ugly of all those things that I mentioned. And so when we have these types of aspects, especially the more challenging ones, we are being activated, we are being energized, we are being pushed, we are being triggered in a multitude of different ways. And generally, with respect to the planet being aspected in the way that it is being aspected. So, going back to the current aspect, Mars in a conjunction with Uranus. Now we know at Mars, it's currently in the sign of Taurus, and Uranus is the planet of revolution and change and radical endings and radical reversals and the unexpected. And so it doesn't really care for being in the sign of Taurus as it's been for a while now. It's making its last, impression in the sign before entering Gemini of summer of next year. And so it happens to be slowing down in a very challenging place in the heavens. And that place is 26 degrees of Taurus. And Mars is going to catch up to that exact degree on July 15th. Right now it's July 10th. So we're already having this buildup to what is this bringing? What is this showing us? And even without factoring in Algol, the fixed star, this is already intense because it's Mars, because it's Uranus, because it's in a fixed sign. And then when you throw in Algol, or I should say, when you throw in Mars and Uranus meeting Algol, the most malign star above, it's really volatile and intense. And it's a time when we really can't tolerate where things are stuck anymore. We can't tolerate being shoved into a box, pegged into a hole. Like we can't allow ourselves to stew any longer. Something's about to break or snap or burst at the seams, and it's collective. And anytime you have a personal planet, or somewhat of this is the farthest planet now going from the sun, personal planet. But anytime you get a planet like this combining with one of those outer three planets, or what they call the transpersonal planets or the trans-Neptunian planets, it is massive. It's on a collective level. So it's impacting each of us in a different way according to our own natal blueprint, according to wherever we have Taurus in our chart, whether or not we have planets in that chart. We all have Taurus. We have all of the signs somewhere in our chart in a certain house. And so this is being activated in a way of, whether it's in your second house of finances or in your sixth house of health and service. I will, toward the end as well, go into what this will mean for the signs, and I'll explain how you can apply that to your chart more specifically. But all of these things this whole year with Mars have been really, yanking our chains, getting our goat, pushing us, kind of poking and prodding us, like, hey, what do you want to do? What's it going to be? Like, what are you willing to do to get yourself out of this situation and into the one that you've been dreaming of your whole life? And so this combination right now is really explosive. Now, I'm not saying it's all negative. I don't believe in an all negative influence, even with a star like Algol, for example. And we're going to be dealing with this influence for a while, not just when Mars makes the conjunction, but for several months, because Uranus stays in a spot for quite a while. And so what we're seeing is, I'll start with the negative actually. Obviously, it's been a time of war and tension. We are in an election year. We are hearing about all kinds of tragic things happening in the Gaza Strip. There are just so many things that it seems like the war and the tragedies never end. That's just living on planet Earth, right? But there are times of escalation, right? There are times when it just seems to be even more, it's underlined, it becomes unbearable, it becomes again, and then, I think of it as like how we in America are living, like this analogy that we're in a theater and we've got this front row seat. I think it was it George, what's his name, the comedian, he's no longer with us. He said, how we have the front, it's a clown show and we've got a front row seat, and we're watching it, whether it's funny or tragic, but until it hits us personally, we're not really processing it. We're not really understanding what's going on. So some of these elements of war and crisis are being introduced more intimately into our lives. And some people believe, oh, we're going to see World War III here in our country. And whether or not that's true in an actual sense of explosives and like that, we're seeing a war already. We're seeing a war on our minds. We're seeing a war on the children. We're seeing all kinds of negativity and onslaught of negativity that comes along with the freedoms that we've come to take for granted. So I'm saying all these things because, of course, Uranus being also the planet of intuition and willpower and, enlightenment, it's bringing a lot of things to our attention that we do have opportunities to change. Again, Mars is the planet of taking initiative, independence. It's about selfhood. It's about, it's about how we each as individuals make an impact in the world with our presence, with our words, with our actions. Every little thing that we do and contribute does make a difference in the great scheme of things. So, I wanted to mention this, even though this isn't the focus of this talk, this aspect, it's definitely leading into some things. We'll have a little bit of a nice period. I mean, we do have some positive aspects coming into play right now with Venus that are probably our saving grace at a time like this. And then Mars will trine Pluto at toward July 21st at 0 degrees Gemini. And then in August, it's going to get into a conjunction with Jupiter at 16 degrees of Gemini. And that's going to be a very interesting month. You're going to want to watch out for the overexertion, overtaxing ourselves. And this is going to be a theme throughout the retrograde and the opposition, by the way. But we're getting a little taste of that with Jupiter ramping things up next month. And because Jupiter is in Gemini, and then Gemini's ruling planet Mercury is going to be retrograde, it's even more emphasized that we should be careful about, just because we might be feeling more exuberant and confident and optimistic. And that's great. It's just Jupiter can overdo things too and lead us toward foolish actions at times. So not to take those bursts of energy for granted. Like today, I want to give you an example, an anecdote, if you will. Getting ready for this Mars talk, leading up to this, I accidentally cut my finger and blood was, splurting out everywhere. And I was cutting an onion, and all of the things involved are so Mars. First of all, accidents are Mars ruled. blood is Mars ruled. Knives and sharp objects. I was holding it in a clumsy way. I shouldn't have been doing it like that. And then onions and all spicy foods are ruled by Mars as well. So we get this little taste, no pun intended, of, or I was getting this little taste. I'm like, seems like when I get into these modes where I'm preparing for a talk like this, I either subconsciously put myself into situations where, oh yeah, so this is what you can talk about, or it just happens. The universe provides. So now we're going to get into the actual subject matter that I had originally intended for this to be, which is Mars going into a retrograde and spending a great deal of time in an opposition with Pluto. Actually, there's one more thing I want to mention. This was in my notes. The solar eclipse that we had in April was also Mars ruled in Aries. And then we had an important trigger of that eclipse on May 25th, 26th, when Mars was at 19 degrees Aries, where that eclipse was. So it's just all the way around this whole year, another testimony, if you will, of just how much Mars we are dealing with. Okay, so now for the retrogrades. We are going to enter the pre-shadow of Mars retrograde on October 4th. And this is going to be at 16 degrees of Cancer. And in a way, I see this as being even more volatile as the day that it turns retrograde. And the reason is that in early October, Mercury in Libra is also the same degree squaring Mars on that day. So the month of October gets off to this very edgy, maybe argumentative start, and it could bring up a lot of tension and stress for some people. Then again, I believe in utilizing all stressful aspects and keeping an open mind to what stressful aspects could bring into our lives, such as, you know, the increase of focus in a certain area and more energy to tackle like paperwork or something that requires a lot of intellect, a lot of just mental concentration, right? What we can use that for is we can use the tension of that whole week and time to, okay, get into it, you know, like read the fine print as well, because everything we say and write and express has more impact. And so for better or for worse. So it's pay attention to that degree, that general degree. You want to watch over the next several months, especially in October, and then again next year in February when Mars goes direct. You want to watch for anything, any planets that you have between I would say between 15, 18 degrees of Cancer. And if you don't have any planets around that spot, check out where it lands in your chart, because that point and any midpoints that might be there, that whole area is being activated. And so, again, I feel that the pre-shadow could be even more impactful simply because it's being kicked off with this square from Mercury. The actual retrograde, and I'm going to send, let's see if I can attach this here to the chat box. It happens right before the holidays on December 6th. So bear with me just a moment. I'm going to send the chart so you can see that. Let's see here, Mars slides. Okay. Okay, so if you look to the right of the screen and the chat box, I have sent everyone the chart for Mercury retrograde. So that's basically, I'm using Greenwich time. So Mars will be 6 degrees of Leo. So that's another degree and area that you'll want to look out for. There are certain degrees that, because of the stationing, the shadow period and the stationing that you'll want to look out for. So 6 degrees of Leo and anything even between 4 and 8 degrees of Leo, you want to look for anything around that area over the next few months as well. So on that day, you'll see that it's already, or actually it has already made its opposition. So we will have to go backward just a little bit to the first opposition between Mars and Pluto, but I just wanted to show this to you. I'm sorry I cut off the date there, but I just wanted to show you the layout where everything is in the heavens and how Pluto will have made its re-entry into Aquarius by then. So I feel that this is an important thing to tie in because of the fact that this opposition involves Pluto. So now I'm going to go back to the first of these oppositions. There are going to be 3 of them during this period of time, during the pre-shadow and the post-shadow, between the pre and the post-shadow of Mars's retrograde. Pluto will make opposition, Mars will make opposition to Pluto 3 times. And so I'm going to show you the first of those. And the first one will be in November. So because it's going to happen 3 different times, stretched out over several months, this is why we need to pay a special attention to this transit, because it means that it's not just a one-time, one-day transit. It's not just even a 1 week or a 1 month. This is stretched out over half a year. This is major. And it's not just about the retrograde and the opposition and everything that will come through all of these things, but this opposition is occurring during a time of 2 very important ingresses. One specifically we'll get into soon. So if you are looking at this one here, Mars is the first opposition happens on November 3rd. Mars will be 29 degrees of Cancer and Pluto will be 29 degrees of Capricorn. And for those of you who are new to astrology and degree theory, I wanted to say that the 29th degree is considered a critical degree and hugely impactful. It's like it carries all of the weight of that planetary energy through that sign, all of the lessons, all of the wisdom, all of the hardships, everything is wrapped up and bundled into this 29th degree that is on the cusp of a new degree and a new expression. So this is what I mean. We have all these important ingresses occurring during Mars's retrograde and oppositions. And so this is the first one. Now, Pluto entered Aquarius briefly last year, and then it dipped back in this year. And then it's going to be retrograding back into Capricorn for 3 months. And so I wanted to say what this is going to mean for basically all the different modes of signs. And why it's important to understand that Pluto being a planet of, it's really considered the planet of transformation and revelation. It's the sort of hell that we have to go through before we can experience something greater and better, the heaven, metaphorically speaking. And some people say it's like the more severe version or expression of Mars. So if Mars is known as the first malefic planet, so to speak, the most passionate, volatile planet that symbolizes masculine energy and aggression and war, and then Pluto is like times 10. You can imagine how explosive potentially these two in opposition could be, no matter what signs they are occupying. And the fact that Pluto at the same time is going to be making this transition from the, it's okay, final, the final processing what the past 15 years has brought to us collectively. And each of us, in terms of those Capricornian themes and values and struggles with, our sense of place in the world and our relationship to authority, where we stand in terms of our political orientation, because all of that has been really, really explosive on the earth in ways that I don't think our ancestors quite experienced in the way that we have been experiencing this. It's like everything has been escalated in terms of, how our different orientations and whatever the identity politics are, how much separation and how much strife this has caused, and how, because our country, at least I live in the US, we had our first Pluto return a year ago, and how that has influenced a lot of different world affairs. And we're just collectively, we're doing a lot of, purging and reorientation with that whole theme as we enter Aquarius for the next 2 decades. And so, this aspect, or this transit cannot really be separated from the Mars and what Mars is doing, because it's part of the whole process. And so the general theme of Mars in opposition with Pluto, before I go into the detail of Cancer, Capricorn, Leo, Aquarius, because it will be mostly spending about 5.5 months in the sign of Cancer, and then about 4 months in the sign of Leo. And I'll get into that in a minute, but I just wanted to say what the general themes of Mars opposite Pluto are. So we have, this planet that's already very tense and passionate. It symbolizes fury and wrath and even revenge. You have this opposing force with Pluto, which is the demoted dwarf planet, but that packs a huge wallop. It doesn't matter what you think of it. The size doesn't matter here. There are these two opposing forces in our lives that can be highly motivational or destructive, depending on so many different factors. Okay, so there are a lot of projections that can happen because, again, Mars is the self. And we come at things like with our Mars planet position, energy, whatever, always by projecting, whether that's in a positive or in a negative way. So we can already anticipate there will be a lot of projection going on to the nth degree, but that is also an opportunity to advance ourselves, maybe in some way, like in our career. It's a very potentially violent aspect, because any sort of challenging aspect, and I mentioned this briefly in my book, Psychic Self-Defense and the Zodiac. I gave a chapter to this, aspects of danger, power, and potential. And definitely any sort of interaction between these two planets is potentially a very dangerous thing, or a catalyst for huge accomplishment, transformation. And it depends on the person. It depends on circumstances. So many things, right? So the violent potential is there. There's a potential for a huge amount of sexual frustration or deviance, or unfortunately, also the potential for sexual violence, such as rape, right? Because Mars is something coming at somebody, and the Pluto, whether Pluto is the receiving end or the giving, these two are at odds, and they're both sexually charged planetary influences. So, then again, if people wanted to spice up their love life, this could be just the thing to get it going, So because Mars is a planet that, if we know how to harness its energies, can breathe energy into any avenue of life. Just, it really depends on our focus. So those are some of the potentials. Again, accidents, we have to be careful that we don't get in over our heads. Mars also rules the head, and just having the daring, to do things we normally wouldn't do. And that is really great if we need to act in a certain way. Health-wise, this could be a time when either we feel the bombardment of toxins flooding our system through our bloodstream, or that we finally have the tools or the wherewithal to discard, discharge, dispose of, purge, exorcise, to eliminate these things from our life. So I'm talking any type of poisonous influence, any pests, whether those pests are actual or metaphorical, parasites, actual or metaphorical, any negative influences that we are so done with, right? And you need to pull out the big guns now, right? There's no nice way to do this anymore. You need to actually get to the bottom of things. If that is something that you need to do in your life, this is going to be your transit. And most likely, it's not a one night or one day or one statement event. It's like a life change, right? It's not just saying, okay, I'm done with that, or okay, you're out of here. It's that now we have to back it up with a lifestyle change of some kind, to be like, to actually exhibit the fact that there is no more room for this toxic energy to enter our field. There's no possibility. There's no entry. We've built up a force field of energy in our physical vehicle or in our mind, that only that which aligns with us on a core level is allowed, right? So it can give that push to making the necessary changes, if that is something that you wanted to work on. So now I'm going to touch on, since I have sent you this first hit, the 29th degree. The 29th degree is, it's a really, you could even say voracious degree, because it's like, okay, I've got to catch up with everything and make sure I've got to make sure that I have the lesson down before I transition to the next thing. So it's got a sense of urgency around it, as does the 0 degree, another critical degree. That the 29th degree is really, it's a critical turning point, obviously, for many reasons. And so what does this look like, and how is this showing up for us? It is showing up again in the ways of something that, because it's an opposition, it's something we need to face, okay? We need to face and either come to terms with in a healthy way and embrace as something that is an extension of ourself, instead of just trying to project it like we do onto our shadow, right? I don't like that. That's the bad quality that only this person has, or whatever. Or, like I said before, about the time of detoxing and purging and catharsis, and finally ridding ourselves of very toxic influences. And some of us, we don't necessarily think of our lives as containing any such toxic influences, but upon further examination, maybe it's not in something so obvious. Maybe it's in something about relationships, or, maybe it is a dietary thing, eating thing, always eating junk food or whatever it is. And it's just something that we realize, like, either we can take initiative to change that, or probably begin to suffer the consequences of something that's not right within us, right? Something that's very detrimental to our mental health and well-being, our physical or spiritual well-being. So this is why I say this is a huge opportunity to revolutionize our lives. And in the event that it's not about toxic energy or any of those things that I've listed, but it's more about what hasn't happened yet, especially for the young people, the people that are struggling right now in the economy to make ends meet, or to finally be something or get somewhere or achieve their goals, right? This sort of influence is going to be a huge catalyst for growth. And it doesn't mean that it's going to come easily. Nothing about this aspect between Mars and Pluto spells out easy, but there's a lot of energy. There's a huge charge. There's enormous potential for growth and for acceleration and actualization of goals, again, that can be applied to mundane concerns or spiritual goals and aspirations. We sometimes forget that the planets and these influences, unless we are actual, magical practitioners and people who work with the elements and work with deities and so forth, we forget, like, everything can be used for something. Nothing should be discarded, no matter how challenging it is, no matter how ugly it looks, So for example, if you are a person who works with the spiritual world, if you are practicing magic or whatever your spiritual orientation is, just know that any rituals or devotions that you have to Mars-oriented deities are going to be enhanced. And I'll give you a few examples. In the Hindu tradition, that would be Ganesh, right? The Lord of, he's like the elephant god and the remover of obstacles. That's so apropos for everything that we've been discussing, right? Any fire deities, any male or masculine deities that you resonate with, especially if they are like spiritual warriors and spiritual goddesses included, of course. So these are the types of energies and deities that it's not that you can't work with these beings and influences anytime, because they're universal archetypal beings and energies that could be accessed at any time. But I do notice that at certain times, we in our human form will benefit more at certain times than others in accessing and working with certain types of energies. So this window is opening for any type of psychic work or spiritual or magical work that emphasizes strength, courage, psychic protection, or those who are involved in sports, or those who just want to get strong, get toned. This is going to be a great time to get fit, go to the gym, step it up a notch with your daily routine, whatever that is. You're going to have more energy to do that. Or for those who are interested in becoming entrepreneurs, those who want to learn more about self-promotion. And I have 3 different flower essences that jumped up in the top of my head, specifically Bach flower essences, because those tend to be the most accessible for people. You could go into any Whole Foods nowadays and you can find those 38 flower essences, just like you can find a whole list of homeopathic remedies. The first one is holly. Holly is the flower essence that you reach for in times of anger, in times of jealousy, in times of rage, in times of just immense loathing, any negative feeling that eats away at you, that is just, yeah, hugely negative, especially when it has that tinge of anger and rage. That's the flower essence that is traditionally used and for a long time. So it too has its own archetypal energy and essence associated with it. That essence could be helpful for some people if during this period of time the struggle is in some way causing those types of feelings to come up. It could help with releasing them. The other flower essence that popped in my head was vine. The flower essence of vine is for situations of dominance, whether you are the one dominating the situation, consciously or subconsciously trying to manipulate loved ones or co-workers or employees or whatever to do your bidding. And even if this happens in people who are well-meaning, believe it or not, people can come across and exert their will in a way that's very off-putting and results in a lot of conflict unnecessarily because a person hasn't learned how to temper that with literally patience or just a different way of wording things. So vine flower essence could be another popular one over the next few months. And then last but not least, I thought of larch for confidence. So there are a lot of people who could use a boost of it in their life. For people that have been sitting on the sidelines or have been squashed, their voices have been squashed. They haven't been able to fully express themselves for fear of being ostracized or persecuted or whatever, or just the feeling like they're not good enough, always comparing themselves to others and feeling like they're falling short. This flower essence can help with having more of a sense of self, and that's what Mars energy is about too. It's your Mars planet, unless it's inflicted heavily, wants you to succeed. It wants you to be seen. It wants you to express yourself and be yourself, all that you can be, without joining the army. So it's like, if you're not able to do that and you need that extra little boost, you might try larch flower essence to help you with that during this period of time. Okay, so that was the first. Okay, so that being said, Mars will be at the end of Cancer. So I talked about the degree, but I didn't talk about the sign. So we're looking a lot at themes pertaining to our sense of place in the world, because that's what Cancer is about. And again, Mars will be spending the majority of time in this sign. So it's not just that one hit. We're going to spend a lot of time in Cancer, not just Leo. Leo, yes, but a lot of time in Cancer. So we're looking at what is our method of self-preservation? What is our sense of belonging? What is our true family, whether that's our blood relatives or our soul family? Some of us who, if you've been orphaned or never felt connected to your relatives, or there has been a lot of conflict and discord in your family, then this would be a time that you are really looking at that, healing from that, making some final decisions about family. A lot is coming up for a lot of people, or probably will be coming up around those different themes in their life. So I want to make sure that there's time for every single transit. So I'm going to upload now the second hit, the second, I should say, opposition, and that one occurs in January. So that opposition in January is a different degree, different signs. So now Mars has re-entered Leo. Between these two oppositions, Mars already entered into Leo. Okay, so now it is at this degree of 1 degree of Leo, and it's opposite of Pluto. So here you can see the chart, and there's, by that time, we have more of a sense that we're integrating some of these changes, right? And we've entered the new year. And I wanted to take some time to talk about the retrograde itself. My goodness. So the retrograde that occurs, I already sent you, that was the first one that I sent you on December 6th, of course, is carried throughout these activations, these oppositions. And the retrograde basically turns Mars in on itself for a different sort of expression. Anytime a planet goes retrograde, its influences become either subdued in some way, not initially though. Initially, everything becomes amplified, both on the station of direct, retrograde and direct, I'm sorry. But in the middle of the retrograde, we begin to have a different feel of this Mars. It almost, if this is the planet of, like I said, aggression and anger and passion, times 10, now it becomes almost, I'm saying almost because it's always going to be Mars, okay? But it almost takes on a little note of Venus, just because some people would say it kind of wimps out a little bit, or circumstances are not allowing the full forward direct expression of the planet. So we have time to ruminate and stew and think about what we want to launch and release and put forward into the world. And I think that's really helpful and sometimes necessary, because sometimes we leap before we look, and we come into all sorts of accidents and situations we could have avoided if we just had a little more forethought. So don't think of it in terms of being thwarted, or, you know, your goals denied, maybe delayed, but not denied. You know, it's not the best of times to, say, launch a new business when Mars is retrograde, right? It's really not the best time for certain things, even like important trips or business trips, especially. But it is a good time to really gather one's forces, literally, because this is such a forceful planet and we've got Pluto opposite the whole time. Gather those forces as if you're gathering the chi, you know, like, and as if you're revving yourself up and you're getting ready for what's going to manifest and be released into the world. And you need to keep the energy in circulation, because when we let it stagnate, that also leads to problems and aches and pains and inflammation and all of that. So we need to stay hydrated. We need to keep moving, but don't overdo it, but realize something's happening inwardly, outwardly. Something is, something that is going to get released big time at the time of Mercury's stationing direct. And that's actually a time when we also need to be quite vigilant and aware of potential dangers and explosions, right? Because at that time, specifically, I don't know if I mentioned these dates already, but I'm going to go over these. That'll be February 23rd at 17 degrees of Cancer. And remember earlier I said, keep your eye on that degree or any general, you know, between 15 and 18 degrees of Cancer, because come February, especially at the end of February, all of the energy that's been building up and pent up and not expressed is going to come full steam ahead, for better or for worse. So it's good to already have a plan and have an outlet, so to speak, and have healthy outlets already having been activated during the time leading up to this, so that it's, how can I say this? It's like giving you're putting energy through the drip feed or something, you know, like where you're not going all out, you're not like giving everything you've got during this time period, but you're staying focused. You've got your eye on the prize. You're not getting distracted. Okay. You're still going forward one step at a time, one foot in front of the other. Don't be discouraged. You might have some setbacks. You know, you might see some things or experience some things that seem discouraging, but don't let yourself fall into a slump, okay, or of inertia. But just realize it's the time to keep a momentum as much as possible without going full on. Because if either you do nothing or you do too much, you're going to suffer hugely with this type of an influence. Because if you don't do enough and you just sit on your hand like, I have no energy, I'm not inspired. Well, it's just like the whole saying with money. It takes money to make money. It takes energy to make, but sometimes you have to just pull it out of somewhere, like deep inside your soul. You have to just find a way to make it happen, to get yourself up off the couch, get out of the inertia, just enough to get yourself going in a certain direction, whatever that direction may be. Some people are going to be struggling with legal disputes. Some people are going to be struggling with health problems, some with business, some with relationships. Whatever that situation is, staying in this momentum of some sort of positive and motivational program, if you will. Like for some people, that's like a daily meditation or exercise routine. As long as you stick to it. Now, don't add anything new or crazy, remember, because if you go all out, because if you don't do anything, you're going to be trampled on. You're going to feel frustrated. You're going to feel like missed opportunities, or the world's passing you by or whatever, or by the time Mars goes direct, you're not even going to know what to do with yourself. But if you go too far, too much, it's like you've wasted so much precious energy, right? That could have been properly utilized, executed, directed, and so on. So it's all about the balance. Actually, with this whole thing, it's all about how we maintain a sense of discipline. And it's a little tricky because we've got Saturn in Pisces right now, and it's not really in Pisces, it's not really lending itself to worldly pursuits as much as it is toward our inner development and preparing us for a brand new planetary cycle, if you will. But the world goes on, life goes on. We still have to keep up this momentum. So by January 3rd, we're more clear about things. We're still in the retrograde, but now we see now we've got a little bit more of a sense. Okay, I see what this is going to be. Even thank you, June. I appreciate that. As much as we might still be sitting on some ideas or plans and not really ready to go forward with all of them, we're saying, I get the picture now, because we have that leonine sense of something new is coming, right? And so we have that sense of joy and excitement that we can kind of keep a little to ourselves or with us and our loved ones, right? Until the time is right. And so there's this feeling with this second hit opposition that there's something to look forward to. That's how I'm seeing it. Something to look forward to, which is really great. We need that. I'm going to go to now the last one of these oppositions, which happens in April. So that's around April 25th, I think, 26, 27, depending on where you are in the world. And that's 3 degrees of Leo. And by that time, Mars is direct. So we've come out of it, and we've started to sort of integrate some of the things that have happened in our lives. And now it's coming out into circulation. Now we can start bringing things out. And, the thing about the post shadow, let me see. I talked about the pre-shadow starting in October. The post shadow doesn't end until May 2nd. So we're starting to bring things out in April. Okay. So we're starting to, and we're starting to feel more like we can do things more according to plan. And starting to make some more concrete plans that are big and long lasting. And by May, it's like, again, it's going to be, the road is opening. But in April, it's already, now it's not just a thought or an inkling or something to look forward to. There are actual signs of things happening, and being at the 3rd degree, that's the Gemini degree. So it's coming into circulation. People are talking about it. People are excited. And something very interesting happens though, that I didn't go into yet. And this is one of those ingresses, those very important ingresses that occurs during this whole period of time. As you can see now, if you look at the planet Neptune, I wish I could point to it with my thing, but I don't have the slide the way I want it to. Neptune is the symbol that you see right there at the beginning of the 1st house, for those of you who are just learning the astrology, next with the 2 zeros next to it, to the left and the right of it. So Neptune will have, during Mars's going back into direct motion, Neptune will have entered the sign of Aries, which is, guess what, ruled by Mars. And none of us have seen this. None of us have seen this aspect, or this transit, sorry, in our lifetime. And this is going to be a very impactful thing too. I'm going to put in that happens, by the way, on March 30th. Neptune enters Aries on March 30th. And I already did a little spiel about that. I'm going to just include the link here. So if you want to get to it later, you can. And what that will mean for the collective. I don't want to spend too much time on that though, but only to say that it's going to be part of this whole transition. So again, the retrograde occurs December 6th at 6 degrees of Leo. So keep an eye out on the 6 degrees in your chart of Leo, or the 5 to 7 degrees, somewhat, that close area. It goes direct on February 23rd at 17 degrees of Cancer. And then as far as the shadows, the pre-shadow October 4th at 16 degrees Cancer, and the post-shadow is left on May 2nd at, again, 6 degrees of Leo. So when Mars is direct, it spends about a month and a half in a sign. And when it's retrograde, it spends much longer. So it'll be about 2 months in Cancer before entering Leo on November 5th, and then 2 months in Leo before re-entering Cancer. And then as far as the opposition with Pluto really comes into effect in mid-October, and it lasts until the middle of May of 2025. That is emphasized also by the ingress of Pluto back into Aquarius. Pluto will go direct from being retrograde. That's no big deal because Pluto goes retrograde every year for half the year, but it will go direct on October 12th while Mars is slowing down to go retrograde. So isn't that interesting how they're going to line up with each other? And that's around the time that whole opposition comes into effect. And Pluto will be, again, a big part of this whole catalyst for change. And I am going to jump in now to describe basically what this means for the signs, not yet the individual signs, but in terms of modalities, right? Because we have 3 different modalities. For the cardinal signs, which include Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, throughout this whole year, into next year, into early next year, involving this opposition. And even since last year, cardinal signs have been, are in, and will continue to be in a process of major finalization, completion, coming to the end of a journey or a way of life, being reborn into a new sort of life under new circumstances. So this has really been incredible for cardinal signs, and especially for Cancers and Capricorns who are having this experience, like a huge weight is finally being lifted, like, oh, like some of them are just feeling like the weight of the world, right? But even the Aries and Libra people too, because they're part of the the cardinal cross, so also affected in different ways. Yes, thank you as well. Thank you for everyone that's tuned in and commented. So fixed signs, including Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, the fixed signs are being pushed really hard right now, and they have been, and they will continue to be for the next, I hate to say the next couple of decades, but it will get more enriching and it'll get better. And like an elder friend of mine once told me, in life, as we progress, especially in a spiritual sense, the path does not get easier, but it gets better, right? And this is not my own words. I'm quoting another dear friend of mine, but I have found that to be ever so true. It doesn't get easier, but it gets better, more rewarding, right? And so I say that to you fixed sign people, because you're being triggered like hell, being asked to move beyond your comfort zones and to actualize the totality of your potential in the world. Pretty tall order, right? And some of you don't feel equipped for that. And it's okay. You'll have a lot of chances to get that down. But that's what's going on for you. Fixed signs, and then mutable signs, including Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. You are all shifting out of old perspectives, old roles, and old paradigms, and connecting to others in different ways than before. For you signs, the current changes are more about communication and connection, like having an enrichment in your connections to others. And so it's like, some big changes are coming, but it's not as cataclysmic as it is for the fixed and cardinal signs, especially what the fixed are coming into and what the cardinal are kind of coming out of. So that being said, let me see if I think I've covered most everything as far as, Mars and how Mars, like this whole year has been, and all the different major aspects that Mars has been making. I touched on Algol, I touched on the squares that Mars made. So I will open this up for questions, but before I do that, I wanted to now get into for all the individual signs. So how I and a lot of other astrologers suggest looking at this is to use your rising sign if you know it, and both your rising and sun, or use your sun if you don't know it. You can use both, but I actually tend to think that these types of horoscopes are more applicable if you know what your rising sign is, and then to a lesser extent if you know, of course, your sun sign. So remember that as I read you the signs, of course, the description for your sun sign would apply, but it would also more especially be hitting a little closer to home for your rising sign. So starting with Aries, over the next several months, but especially as we get into the later part of the year, you come to terms with either a certain task that you've willingly taken on or something that calls your attention regarding your home life and your family. And you might be more on guard than usual. And you might get this feeling that you need to pick up the slack for others or to simply up your game in your professional life. It's time to just go for it, whatever it is. Like, you've already had that feeling like it's coming, it's coming. It's time to get serious about laying some foundations that you will need for the future. Taurus, Mars is spending a majority of time in your third house, which means there will be a lot of communications taking place. For some of you, conversations might be feeling a bit more argumentative or annoyed or annoying with your circumstances or with people. So examine where you've been feeling stuck or tired of saying yes when you really mean no, and make some necessary changes before things become absolutely intolerable or explosive. If you have or want children, they could also become more of a central theme in your life. And it's not the most, I wouldn't describe this as being the most fertile time, but it could be for some of you. Gemini, Mars is spending quite a bit of time in your second house for a while, and you'll be challenged to take more initiative when it comes to your finances or taking more proactive steps in setting things into place the way that you most desire and envision. It's possible that some of you experience tension with siblings or relatives. Nobody is likely to hand you what you want on a golden platter. So if you really, really, truly want something to be different or to have something, you have to be willing to go out and make it happen, Gemini. Hey, Cancer, this transit is asking you to examine what you are putting out into the world and whether or not this reflects your true values and passions, or if you've given away too much over time for too little in return. If you've been lacking in confidence or initiative, you'll be challenged to conquer your false beliefs about yourself by daring to be, do, and share the best of yourself and your abilities without reserve. You're also in the process of transforming your relationship to money. And, in a way, aren't we all? With the times that we are in this country, and remember, America the Great is a Cancerian baby. So big time money changes here. Leo, can you sense that some major things are about to shift in your life regarding your position, your title, your career, your livelihood? Do you even recognize the person you are now from the person that you were just over a year ago? You may sense that you have been tempered and chiseled away at as though a stone being perfected and fashioned into a gem. You have to endure the pressure that is caused in order to become more beautiful, more great, more successful, whatever your goal is. Virgo, with Mars spending a great deal of time in your 11th, but also in your 12th, you may be experiencing a spiritual rite of passage in your life, and one that involves the cooperation and or celebration with many key people. Whether it is you passing on the torch to another or being on the receiving end of some gift, your exchanges with others are a huge highlight for several months. And some of you might actually have to walk away or end a relationship that has served its course. And doing so might be a messy process, but a necessary one so that you can really step into more fully what you are meant to be doing in your life. Libra, with Mars in your 10th house and Pluto in your 4th, for a great deal of this transit anyways, your social standing, your career, public image are all becoming a central theme in your life as you seek to achieve a balance within yourself of downtime, work, home life, and whatever it is you're doing to make your mark in the world. Your friends and community are becoming even more especially involved in your work. Do you feel supported or do you feel drained in what you do and offer? And look at your home life. Does your home need renovation or is it time to look elsewhere? If you're happy, great. Maybe you're just having parties. Mars, Scorpio. Mars is going to be hanging out for a while in your 9th house and in your 10th for an extended stay as well. So you want, it seems like a lot of you want to escape from the humdrum of daily life, the grind, the rat race, but there seems to be no easy exit, at least not at first glance. It's time to come up with an ingenious idea, apply some creative problem-solving issues that you've been stewing in for far too long now. If you play your cards right, you'll gain much better leverage in your daily affairs than you have in recent years. Sagittarius, during this transit, there may be significant shifts occurring around your finances, likely regarding shared resources. Yet for others among you, the focus is more hidden and obscure. While the eighth house themes of deep change are making their mark in your life, there is something ineffable about your experience that may be lifting you to new heights, giving you great new insights. You might find that you are the one helping others around you who have lost their way. Capricorn, your relationships have taken a radical turn in the past couple of years. And you are in this phase of assimilation now regarding all that has taken place. You are not settling for less anymore. You are not going to tolerate abuse or neglect or unhappiness at work or at home. If you are the one that's been causing the problems, then you're going to have to reckon with that. But those of you, I assume, that are listening to me are probably ones that have received such bad treatment from others, and you're just saying no. You are really coming into a sense of what your worth is, and in the coming months, you are carving a new path based on the calling of your soul. Relationships are shifting for a lot of you. Aquarius, it'll be spending a lot of time, this whole opposition, 6th and 7th house. And then, of course, you know, there are the polarity houses I've been mentioning for all of the signs where Mars has been. I haven't so much been mentioning, but I've been taking into account the opposite house and Pluto's placement. So Aquarius, this is a huge, huge turning point in your life where you must choose between a life of mediocrity, basic survival, and compliance to a life full of adventure, magic, and sacred rebellion. What really inspires you? I'm not suggesting you shirk off your responsibilities or your children if you're a parent, but besides your roles of necessity, ask yourself if you're acting counterintuitively, habitually, or with full awareness and engagement. This is big, really big for you, Aquarians. Pisces, with Mars situated between your 5th and 6th houses, and then Pluto in the opposite, 11th house, 11th and 12th. Over these next few months, you're taking a lot of the best of what you have achieved, created, and learned, and you're applying it more in organized fashion than you have in a while, perhaps than you ever have, because you're getting more of a push to do so for any number of reasons. You might be recounting some stories and situations going over in your head, as you come to a new understanding of all that you've met with in your journey and how it has changed you. You might be asking, okay, now what? So wait for the universe to answer with your big catch. So that is pretty much the bulk of what I had to share about Mars moving through Cancer and Leo over this extended period, while retrograde in opposition with Pluto. It is definitely going to be a game changer, folks. It's going to be a huge catalyst. It is accompanied by these major ingresses, the first being Pluto ingressing back into Aquarius, the second being Neptune ingressing into Aries next year in the early spring. And then the third is, it is followed by, I should say, Uranus. Uranus makes its exit from Taurus and enters Gemini. So, I mean, this is huge. And each one of those could have their own hour-and-a-half long explanation. But I hope this has given you an idea of what to expect and what to work with. And of course, again, remember that there are so many nuances, and there could be some just as many positive possibilities as negative ones, but we are dealing with a very intense combination of planets, very intense. And so this should be handled with some care and some forethought, and with this sense of responsibility, because whatever we are doing in our lives, there's a lot of energy and momentum that's building and growing. Meanwhile, speaking of the clown show, as we see from everything from the ridiculous to the devastating going on around us, we are challenged to grow a sense of strength inside of ourselves, that we are not swayed by those things, so that we don't become even like the useful idiots, so to speak, to the plan for the mass destruction. It's always somebody behind the curtain. It's always, we think of our political leaders as whether, no matter what side of the spectrum, we always think, oh, they're going to ruin the world. But it's always the one behind the curtain, like in the Wizard of Oz. We don't see who's really pulling the strings. So it takes a lot of intestinal fortitude, spiritual resilience. It takes a lot of strength to resist the mob mentality when it comes to a lot of these things, and to so that we can stay on our path and be useful to the people that feel lost and come to us for help. So anyway, I'm going to open it up for questions, comments. Does anyone have anything they want to share? Any anecdotes, experiences, sharing your own wisdom? Yes, thank you, Victoria. Deep breathing does help. Let's see. I'm reading what you're saying. Okay, yeah. Right. Okay. Lots of cardinals with the fixed mutables. Yes, I'm watching this happen. I do have a lot of I've seen that in my life as well. And it's been amazing to see the transformation take place in a lot of the fixed and cardinal people in my life, and myself included. So it's like a total about face, just it's radical changes happening. Just, I don't even know where to begin with that. I'm going to send this, everyone. I'm sure that all of you are familiar with this card too, by the way. Had trouble signing in. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So I've attached a tower. Yeah. So in the tarot, every single card has different planetary and zodiacal correspondences. So this is the Mars card supreme. It's not to say there aren't other Mars cards, Mars affiliated cards. We have the Emperor, which is ruled by Aries, and we have several other cards that feature Mars in some way. But this particular card is linked. It's funny because a lot of people would think more Uranus, right? Because there's something shocking about the image of the tower. There's something so unsettling and so generally speaking, I mean, some people look at it and they think, oh, wow, that looks exciting. But it's the toppling over of an old way, an old structure. It does seem Uranian in a way, but if you really examine the symbology of Mars and how it shows up in this card, it does make sense, because Mars rules explosives. It rules the phallic symbol there, that's pretty obvious, and the explosive phallic energy there. It's kind of mimicking the ejaculation. So that's one meaning of that. And Mars rules the male part. So there we have that. But on another level, it's signifying some radical changes that we're undergoing that could be either, explosive in a really unsettling way, or that could be the dismantling of, I mentioned this earlier, the dismantling and purging of outdated structures and situations, and dislodging of toxins from our bodies, minds, and spirits, from our homes and from our lives, so there's that as well. Okay, yeah, taking the comment from Victoria here, it's karma, difficult sorts of patterns that we're reckoning, and Alchemy, yes, alchemy can be helpful. That's such a broad term, right? Alchemy, what is alchemy? But if we apply it to this immediate situation or this upcoming transit and series of events or influences, I should say, it's our own ability to transform the base elements of whatever, the base whatever, into something greater. It's a transmutation, and Pluto is helping us with that. So I could do a whole talk on just the tarot affiliations with this time period, but I just wanted to include this because thank you. Yeah, maybe I will. Yeah. I wanted to at least bring this up as foreboding and a bit disconcerting as this card is to a lot of people. When this card comes up and they see it, it's like with the devil card. People go, oh no, oh no, not the tower, it's not always a bad thing. Context is everything. Thank you. Yeah. So glad that you all could join. And I am going to wrap it up here in just a few minutes. So just not long at all, but it's really important to know that that this is a huge wave of energy and potential to radically shift our position and reorient ourselves, reposition ourselves so that we're in a much stronger position, more effective in every way, more successful. It's a time to build greater resilience, and whether that's some sort of physical or spiritual discipline, it's the energy of Mars you put into it. See, Saturn rules discipline in general, but Mars is like the passion that we put into it. So if you put a lot of passion into something, it's like you get what you put out, you get what you put into it. And sometimes when it comes to getting certain results, I'm not going to say all results that you would want, but sometimes it really is more important about how much passion than getting it right or getting it perfect. This is one of those times when I think it's important to become more passionate or to stay passionate. And look at the tower, Mars conjunct Mercury. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. So yeah, we can look at that and look and apply this transit and this influence in a way that we're saying, okay, I'm ready to overthrow the establishment of, because there's a revolution happening for each of us. The establishment, and it's going to be something negative, okay? Think of it as something that doesn't belong there anymore. A lot of people use this broad stroke, this broad term, the elites, the cabal are after us. So it's like, yeah, but we're also playing into it, right? With the SHITTY committee inside of our head, right? So it's like we've got the committee upstairs that we have to answer to as well. It's not just all these straw men and people yanking on our chains all the time and making things difficult, because we've lost our sense of resilience, our sense of passion, our sense of power. Everything's become so feminized. And look, I love feminine energy. I love the goddess and the priestess, path. But the over feminization happening in our society is not healthy for us. And so this is a time with Mars opposing Pluto, spending a great deal of time retrograde, and also the precursor or the kind of the launching pad to Neptune entering a very masculine sign after being in Pisces for so long, where we get to take it back, and it's not just men who are suffering. from this whole over feminization and shaming of their masculine energy. It's all of us, men and women and children as well, have been suffering from the kind of like the dimming of the power of the masculine, the divine masculine. We always hear about toxic masculinity, this and that, but it's like, we really need to understand there's both. There's toxic femininity as well, you know, and you need to have the balance. And alchemy, speaking of alchemy, someone brought that up. The alchemy is when the two, Sol and Luna, come together to create that, you know, you want the golden essence, you know, the golden child that is whole and perfect. You need the divine masculine and feminine. So this is a time to take back that masculine energy and apply it into our lives, where we feel weak, where we feel trodden, where we feel, you know, less than, whatever, and bring it back, and bring back the healthy expression of either manhood or masculinity if we're female, you know, because females are also maligned for having masculine energy. You know, they're called the bitch and like the aggressive so-and-so, just for being assertive, you know, a strong businesswoman. So it's like, we need to, again, have this balance in our life so that we're not having to compete with each other so much and fight with each other so much. Because I think if we really owned these parts of ourselves, we would have a more effective way of relating in general, and we would have less people getting in our way, because we have embraced it within ourselves first, and then giving other people the opportunity and the platform and the encouragement that they need. You know, I say we need more masculine energy, not just any type of masculine energy, but specifically the type of masculine energy that is encouraging and like the guardian, the protector, the provider, that, you know, that type of energy where we need it, whether we're a parent, whether we're an artist or a business person. Like we need to be able to integrate that at this time of massive change and upheaval and confusion, and people are so lost, and there's so much homelessness, and it's just like, we don't have time to bicker about these really minuscule, petty things anymore. We need to lift each other up. We need to help each other out. We need to be the best we can be, because we just don't have time to minimize and poke at each other for stupid things anymore. It's just not. It's like, we had our little moments of luxury with that in the 90s and the 2000s, and we really all got to kind of man up, you know, like, to use that analogy, we kind of pull our big girl panties and pants on and just be like, come on, let's get real here. We've got bigger fish to fry. We've got big problems in the world and in our personal lives, and we need to move beyond the petty to the great. What is the legacy that we want to leave behind to our children? That we were bickering on Facebook about, you know, I don't know. There's just so many things that we're inundated with, or like the girl that said, the girl that's famous now, that the spit on that thing, you know, is that the legacy you're gonna leave behind? That is also very Mars, I have to say. It's pretty funny, but it's also kind of sad, because it's like, is this what it's come to in our society? You know, this is what we're going to go to Broadway for. You don't have to prove that you have any talent or skill or intellect. You just say something slutty or slightly goofy, and then now I'm just throwing a bunch of my thoughts in here, but you get the idea. So this is an opportunity to really tap into the masculine, to the empowering energy, whether you are male or female, to really advance yourself, again, to revolutionize your life, to fill in the gaps, to get what you want out of life, to just take the bull by the horns, take control of your life. Not taking a backseat anymore, not taking no for an answer, in terms of like, no, you can't have that. You can't do that. Why not? Let's do it. You know, that's what this whole thing is about. It's like, yeah, it might be hard. Not gonna lie. It might take a lot of work, a lot of elbow grease, But if you can envision it, if you can feel it, if you can get excited about it, if you can see how great it's going to be, then you can do it. I'm not going to simplify it either, like these law of attraction people that say, just, attract it into being. To an extent, yes. But there's a part of that of like having to take some steps, action, taking the action and the steps to get yourself what you want to have for yourself, for other people. Again, it is a little bit of a selfish energy, Mars. So, but if we think in terms of like, but if I'm happy, if I get and obtain what I want in my life, aren't I in a better position to help other people do the same? Because if I'm struggling along, I'm not happy yet, I still don't have what I want. Sure, I could help people here and there, but it's harder to really make an impact. That ability to make an impact in your life comes from a position in which you've made it happen for yourself first. So being selfish is not all a bad thing. You can read Ayn Rand to read what she had a book, The Virtue of Selfishness. That might be a good read for this whole transit. I'm not a fan really of Ayn Rand, but I'm just saying it's like, it's a really helpful thing to realize that from that position of selfhood and that you've done it, now you can extend a hand. You can't give what you don't have. So, that's it. That's what I had to give you all. And, I really enjoyed this talk, and it's an interesting one, isn't it? Well, I've enjoyed having you all here, and I welcome your input and participation as always in the future as well. And I guess I'll just say goodnight to all of you. I hope you have a beautiful night. I hope that you get the most wonderful, miraculous results from this whole transit. And yeah.